before we talk about those things, there's some other things that we got to address. Listen, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, they were at the podium speaking today at the combine. And Brad Holmes said some things about Myles Garrett. He actually didn't say anything about Myles Garrett, but he said some things about Myles Garrett. And you know what that means. He addressed the situation. Someone asked him about being one premium edge rusher away or something like that. I think that's the term that he used. And he said what he said. Why not 2, 3, 4 of those premium edge rushers? Why are you just focusing on just one? Now, when you say why not 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, obviously it doesn't mean that you are going to go out and make splashes in the signings. And we got some sound where he was talking about contracts and free agency, and we got some sound from Dan Campbell that we're going to play a little bit later. But obviously you're not going to go out there and trade for or acquire or otherwise acquire 2 or 3 or 4 premium pass rushers. So what does he mean when he says that? What does he mean when he says, why not 2, 3, or 4? Well, I guess what you would think is that he is going to go and draft these people. What up, though, Tactical Sport? And he may go and draft these people. But there's this narrative out here which I would like to debunk because I'm tired of hearing it. There's a narrative out there that I would like to kind of correct, because a lot of times I feel like people it's like a dog with a bone. Shout out Syndicate. It's like a dog with a bone where you just get on a take, and no matter what you hear that goes against your take, you stay married to the take, like Nick right, Nick wrong. Often. Don't be married to the take. Stop marrying these takes, man. You see what happens when you marry these takes. Just ask C. Smith. Pause. Or was that pause? No, that's not a pause. There's something about a pun being intended and having something about, I don't know. Anyway, just ask Steve Smith about what happens when you marry these takes. Here's the thing. The take that I'm tired of hearing is that the Cleveland Browns are not going to trade Myles Garrett to the Detroit Lions for 2 first-round picks because the 2 first-round picks that the Detroit Lions would give them are too low. And it was like, would you rather have the 8th and the 16th, or would you rather have, a 28th and a 32? Because obviously if the Detroit Lions get Myles Garrett and everyone else on the defense stays largely healthy, we will be the favorites to win the Super Bowl. So I just want anyone who has this take in mind, who believes that the Cleveland Browns would rather get an 8th and a 16th, which no doubt you would rather do that. But please, let's remember why Myles Garrett requested the trade in the first place. He requested the trade because he wants to go and win championships. If you have the 8th overall pick, Myles Garrett does not want to go to your team. If you have the 2nd or the 3rd or the 1st, anywhere in the top 10, really, realistically, anywhere in the top 20, Myles Garrett doesn't want to go to your team. The Cleveland Browns have stood on business, apparently, in their statements. I don't know how true it is when we're talking about what they're actually going to do, but even Andrew Berry said today at the combine that they're not changing their stance and they're not changing their minds, and they have no intention on trading Myles Garrett. And that's fine, because you have to say that publicly. You have to say that. When you let everybody know that you're trading Myles Garrett, then what happens is that price, yesterday's price is today's price. Okay? Yesterday's price was cheap, and so is today's price. That's what happens when you let your intentions out there into the ether like that. But when you keep it close to the vest, and when you keep playing coy and acting like you're really not going to trade this man, you're not going to move him, you don't care about his trade request, yada, 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 yada. And somebody comes at you and they're like, yeah, 5 first round picks. And you be like, where do I sign up? Where do I sign? This is what you're doing. Okay? Because do you really care about those? Do you really care about Myles Garrett, Cleveland? If someone throws 5 first round picks at you, now no one's gonna throw 5 first round picks at you. That's kind of wild. But do you really care? I think
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you,
We don't care.
that's what Cleveland's gonna do if someone actually offers them just a buttload of picks. Okay, so a buttload or a boatload, you choose. All right. I got a 99 problems and the pick ain't one. Hit me. Anyway, what up though, Zach J? What up though, J Rod? Zach J says Myles Garrett will hold out until he's traded. Right? I mean, it could get ugly. It could get ugly if you don't just grant that man his wishes. Okay, but again, the point was Myles Garrett is going to be instrumental. He's going to have a say. He's going to have input as to where he goes. He asked the Cleveland Browns to trade him to a contender. Let me say this again for those people that didn't hear. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back, because there are people in the back who are talking on the internet, who are in front of cameras, who have microphones in front of them, right? Who work at networks. And they keep talking the same stuff. Oh, Cleveland's not going to Detroit because that's all I'm hearing. Myles Garrett, one more time. Is this thing on? Myles Garrett wants to go to a contender. Any type of picks that the Cleveland Browns are going to get, it's going to be the low end type of picks. If you're getting the first round pick, Cleveland Browns, it's gonna be in the range of 28 to 32. So they know that they're getting 2 very low first round picks, which pretty much equate to very high second round picks, which you also could take your second round pick, I mean your number 2 overall pick that you already have, and maybe you use that pick and then you take the 228s or the 128 and 132, right? You take those 2 picks and then you use them in a package with maybe a second, maybe a third, and then you move back into the top 10 and then you land someone else. That's all you want to do. The Cleveland Browns don't necessarily have to take the 28th overall pick and use it at 28. If they take 2 first round picks, that doesn't mean they have to use one this year and use one next year. Guess what? If they take a pick from this year and they take a pick from next year, they can package it in a deal to move back up this year. Just because you take a pick from 2026 doesn't mean you have to wait until 2026 to use that pick, because you may use it as a bargaining chip in order to propel yourself back into the top 10. And I keep saying this, do the same thing that the Texans did last year. Okay? Well, not technically last year, but you know what I'm saying. The year that they drafted CJ Stroud, I remember his name this time, they went right back up to number 3 because they drafted CJ Stroud at number 2. They went right back up to number 3 and they drafted Will Anderson Jr. out of Alabama. This is what the Cleveland Browns will have the ammunition to do. So if they're asking you for 2 firsts and a third, don't mean they're using that those 2 firsts and a third, just where they are. I mean, sure, if you go pick number 2 and then you got another first round pick at number 28, sure. But why sit there at number 28? Be aggressive and go back up. Take that haul of picks and get back up to number 3. You understand what I'm saying? Right? I think all of the teams that are in the top 10 this year are pretty bad. I don't think last year, when it was Arizona, because the Texans traded with Arizona. I keep saying last year, but it was the year before last. When the Texans traded with Arizona wasn't that bad. It's just that Kyler Murray was coming off of, like, he had missed most of the season with the torn ACL. So Arizona wasn't gonna be horrible. They didn't have the number 3 overall pick because they were a horrible team. No, it's just because their quarterback was injured. I don't think anybody fits that bill this season. So again, people saying that the Cleveland Browns are holding out for high picks, it's not happening. They're not holding out for high picks. They're going to get 2 first rounders. A GM has already said that on the AFC side. He said when he was talking about it working out for the Eagles and the Browns, he said it's going to work out because they're going to get 2 first round picks and the Eagles will get Myles Garrett. And they were connecting the dots because Howie Roseman and Andrew Berry have a previous relationship. Andrew Berry used to work for Howie Roseman. And they keep in contact today and they still have a good relationship. That was the point. The Eagles just won the Super Bowl. And if they got Myles Garrett, they'd be the overwhelming favorite to win the Super Bowl again next year. So now you're looking at 2 number 32 overall picks. And they said 2, right? So now the idea being floated, again, the GM said, and I quote, it'll be a win-win because they'll get 2 first round picks. He said 2. He was talking about trading to the Eagles. He said 2. So now what I'm hearing this morning, and other times I've heard this, well, it'll have to be 3 first round picks because no, you can't get lower than 32. And the GM said they'll get 2 first round picks. Okay, so the narrative doesn't make any sense. Stop doing it. It just sounds dumb. Like, it sounds like the comprehension is off. The reason that Myles Garrett wants to be traded is so he can go to a contender to play in and win Super Bowls. That is it. That is his point. He wrote it in a letter. He said it himself. He's also said that he's not trying to come to a team and break the bank. He said these things personally as a human being. Now, we're trying, for whatever reason, to just add fuel to a fire that's not there. Cleveland's going to hold out. Cleveland's going to hold out for the... No, they're not. No. Cleveland's not trading Myles Garrett to Tennessee or Chicago or Jacksonville or Las Vegas or any of these teams that are in the top 10. It's not happening. Top 20 is probably not happening. 21 to 32 is the only place that are the only places where you can imagine that Myles Garrett would accept. That's it. Right? That is it. So stop it with this narrative. Also, the other narrative, we're debunking narratives today. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a rant. I'll get to the chat in a second. Okay? I'll get to the chat in a second. But it's Detroit sports media. Some of the fans, listen, Brad Holmes, he's not going to give up no draft picks. Brad Holmes ain't finna give up no draft. Yes, he is, because he does it every single year. Every draft. He moves around in the draft. He uses picks to do so. He doesn't use players. He doesn't use people. He uses picks. Do we forget that Brad Holmes drafted and then traded back in to the first round, all the way up to number 12, using picks that he got from Matthew Stafford and the Rams. He used picks. He didn't say, well, this is a first round pick from next year, so we got to keep it till no, we don't have to keep it until next year. Just throw it into the package and move back up to number 12 so we can grab J-Mo. We had already drafted, and then he moved back up to number 12 to draft J-Mo. Draft Brad Holmes, or Draft Holmes as I call him, so that wasn't a mistake, moves up every year. He moved up to draft Terrion Arnold. And guess what he had to do with that pick? I think we were pick number 29. We didn't pick at 29. Guess what he did with pick 29? He gave it to the Cowboys, so he could move up to pick number 24. And he gave them another pick. He will trade picks. Brad Holmes will trade picks. He always does it. So stop acting like he just makes the pick. Oh, well, he's got pick number 28. He's going to make. He don't have to stay at 28 to make the pick. He doesn't stay. He doesn't. He stayed at number 2. Okay. Where can you go from number 2? You can only go to number 1. And Jacksonville wasn't giving that up. But Jacksonville did the most Jacksonville thing ever and did not draft Hutch. So we didn't even need the number 1. Because he drafted Hutch. He got his guy at number 2. Ran to the podium. Roger Goodell was like, slow down, T-Mobile. You're giving away too fast. If you know, use the hashtag. Okay, so these narratives, stop them, please. Stop the narrative. Also, one more narrative. Oh, the salary cap. Bruh. The salary cap is going up to 23 to 26 million this year. We're going to listen to Brad Holmes talk about the contracts and things like that a little bit later. But the salary cap this year right now is bumping up 23 to 26 million. Right now, the Detroit Lions have 50 something million in cap space. Once the bump kicks in, which it will happen by free agency, they will have $80 million. Upwards of $80 million. Just stop it. Okay, the cap is going up every single year, right? They got 23 million this year. They will spend it wisely, and then whatever the bump is going to be next year, whether it's going to be more or less, whether it's going to be, it's always going to be 10 million or more. So whether it's 10 million or whether it's 20 million, it's going up. And when those contracts hit, like Jared Goff's contract in 2026, and it's a $69 million cap hit, it'll be reconstructed. They're not going to pay him. They're not going to have him count 69 million against the cap. But I can guarantee you that counting 69 million against the cap in 2023 does not hurt as much, or it hurts more than it will in 2026. Guess why? Because that 69 million that he's going to account for has already been added to the cap in 3 years. I'm trying to tell you, don't talk about it if you don't know about it. That's all I'm saying. Just stop with these narratives. It's silly. We hang our hats on the same stuff over and over. Stop marrying these takes. I don't love them takes. You know what I'm saying? I don't love them takes. That's what all y'all need to do. Stop it. Let me get to the chat.
What up, though, Lions fans? It's your boy, Motor City Don P here. Listen, if you want to continue keeping your Lions news pragmatic, if you want to keep getting the stats and not none of that static, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share and let everybody know what's going on around here. And turn on your notifications, because how else would you know that we're up in here keeping your Lions news pragmatic? Appreciate you once again, and we are out. Peace.